Welcome to this recording from the Bristol School of Tai Chi. For further information, contact the school on www.bristoltaichi.com.
Hi Ben. Today I'm wondering if we could look at how to keep your practice going through the Christmas break. As classes close for the Christmas break and life gets kind of busy for those of us who are celebrating Christmas, we're looking for some tips on how to keep our practice going during this time.
Yeah, well, anytime there aren't regular classes, so anytime like when you're on holiday or, as you say, over festive periods, it's important to keep practicing and it's important to have some sort of continuity with your practice. So you're doing some every day. And that really is the key to Tai Chi, as little and often. So I would advocate once a day for people 20 minutes or more if you can. Certainly when you first start, 20 minutes a day is a good period of time.
Have you got any tips on how to manage to do that when things are really busy around you, or you're staying somewhere strange, or you haven't got much space or time?
Well, probably the first thing to say about it is that you have something in your mind before you start practicing. So what I mean by that is you don't just go into the garden, stand there, and then think what to do. You plan it out a little bit. So you think about it ahead of time. So maybe over the course of a few weeks, you've got something in your mind that you're going to do every day, and you've got that kind of rehearsed in your mind what you're going to do. So it could be, I'm going to go out into the garden, I'm going to do my loosening exercises, I'm going to do some standing, I'm going to do some silk reading exercise. By that, you don't just go out into the garden and then think what to do. It's really quite useful if you've got it in your head already. So over the next 2 weeks, this is what I'm going to do.
So it'd be quite good if we set ourselves a couple of goals during the break between classes. So
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two types of practice really. There's the practicing Tai Chi because that's what you do, practicing, for your mind, body, developing the skills of Tai Chi, and then there's the learning of Tai Chi. And I think that they're two distinct types of practice. Sometimes you need to go out into the garden and rehearse and learn and work through the things that you've been doing in class. So particularly with choreography. So each day you could have a objective of learning the next move, working on the next move. However, there is the general practice of Tai Chi, which is irrespective of what you're learning in class. And that's the benefit of doing Tai Chi. So that could be something that you've been learning over many years and you're quite proficient at. And you just need to recognize the importance of doing some of that every day.
okay, so our goal could be maintaining sort of our training that we know we're quite good at and we like to do, and then it's a little bit training looking at the stuff we're trying to learn and improve on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that those are two distinct, different aspects. And if you muddy the waters and you kind of mix the two up, you can get yourself into a bit of a knot, really. So I would say, task one is to go out and practice Tai Chi, whatever you've learned already, and to go out and start building a regular practice. And task two is to start to try to learn new things or develop things that you haven't quite yet got a handle on. And if you try and do both those things at the same time, you can get disappointed or you can get frustrated with Tai Chi because you're never really actually getting down to the benefit of doing it. So, for instance, if you take one simple exercise like the joint loosening exercises that we do at the beginning of class, and if you've learned those relatively quickly in the first few weeks, once you then start practicing those every single day, you start to notice the effect it has on your body, on your joints. You start to notice the effect it has on your internal energy, and you therefore start to have a positive association with doing it. So you feel better, you feel more acclimatized in your body, your chi flows more comfortably, you feel more relaxed. And so therefore you want to go out and do that the next day and the next day and the next day. And it's not something you're learning now, it's something that you're actually utilizing.
Mm. Yeah, that sounds really good. That's what we're all trying to do, trying to achieve. I know for some of us it can be a little bit of a battle sometimes, thinking, oh, I've got washing up to do, I've got to put the washing on, I've got to rush off and do X, Y, or Z. I'm just wondering if you've got any tips on how to build your focus on getting out there and practicing.
Yeah, I mean, being busy and having other things to do is not new. That's something that people have been having to deal with, for centuries, and nothing's different about today, the modern world, and the ancient world where Tai Chi was also practiced. That I would say, from my personal experience, one of the things that you can do that really helps you is to have a fixed time. Usually, the earlier in the day, the better. So you have a fixed time in mind, and that's when you're going to go and do Tai Chi. So let's say it's at 8 o'clock in the morning, or whatever time is appropriate for you. You set that time and you go ahead and practice. It could be the transition time from being busy to going and practicing Tai Chi is in itself a disincentive. So, for instance, if you're very busy and you're rushing around, the thought of slowing down, stopping, concentrating, and starting to get into a new mode of operation, a new mindset, is quite difficult for people. And I would expect that the best way of achieving that is not to rush that process. So, for instance, put your coat on, put your hat and gloves on, cold time of year, Christmas, whatever, and simply just go out in the garden and stand for a couple of minutes. Don't move around, don't start the Tai Chi. Just go out there and wait for a couple of minutes for everything to just slow down and settle down. And that way you'll feel more motivated to practice, in fact, because you're out there and everything else is stopping. So the busyness and the rushing around. Now, of course, if people start calling you in because there's things to do indoors, then it's useful to tell people, obviously, I'm going to go and practice some Tai Chi, and that will set the scene.
That sounds like a really good tip. So we're looking at a few things here. We're looking at trying to fix a time and do the same time again and again. I've heard that before, that it's really useful if you do something for like a month at the same time, then you get into a really good routine and it's much easier to do it.
Yeah,
And
and not varying something like, every single time you go to do Tai Chi, you do something different. I think having
right.
having the same thing and doing the same thing
Mm.
each time is in itself something quite useful. So rather than changing your training pattern and the things that you're going to do every day, wait a bit. Maybe do the same thing for a month before you start to make a change. So, for instance, I'm going to do some of the loosening exercises, some standing, and then I'm going to do the first section of the Tai Chi form. And I'm not going to change that. Once I've made that decision, I'm not going to change that for, let's say, for a month. And then at the end of the month, I might decide I'd like to change one of the aspects of that and add something or take something away. So it's a measured approach rather than a scattergun approach, which ultimately you're quite enthusiastic with at the beginning, but then it's difficult to maintain that after 30 days. You might find that you've jumped from one thing to the next.
Mm. So we're looking at a fixed time and having setting ourselves some goals, the things we want to learn, things we want to practice, and practicing the same things for a period of time. So I suppose we get into a rhythm and we start to feel smoother with our practice and therefore enjoying ourselves.
Yeah, I'm a great believer in getting a positive benefit, a positive feedback. You see, initially people think of doing something like Tai Chi as highly disciplined. So people often say to me, "Oh, you must be very disciplined to go and do Tai Chi every day and practice and so on." Well, it's not a discipline as such, because when you start to feel or recognize the benefit, or more importantly, when you recognize the disincentive of not doing it, so you feel on your body, achy and tired, and your energy is not flowing, and you start to notice that from not doing Tai Chi, there comes a point in time where the benefit of doing it becomes so obvious and so paramount that you want to go and practice, and you need to go and practice. So it's not like anymore like a discipline. So from that point of view, I don't think of it as such a highly disciplined thing to do, because obviously nobody's forcing you to do it. But when you start to feel the benefit from doing it, then it's really entrenched. And I think that's something that would be really beneficial. So if we could all get to that kind of entrenched stage, then it will be a positive feedback loop, and therefore not such a discipline.
Thank you, Ben. This was really interesting. I'm feeling much more focused and ready for the Christmas break and looking forward to fitting some training in.
Good. And I guess my closing comment would be, keep it simple. It's been said on for many subjects, but it's the same for Tai Chi as anything else. Keep it simple. Don't elaborate it too much. Keep a simple set of ideas that you want to practice, and get out, have fun. Don't be put off by the bad weather. Get out, put a hat and gloves on, and start to feel the positive benefits of doing Tai Chi.
Great. Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to this recording from the Bristol School of Tai Chi.